Hi everyone, this is Miss Byrd. Welcome. So today we're going to talk about properties of exponents. And today's rule is rule number 5, which is the quotient of powers. So we already did 1 and 2, 3 and 4, and today we're going to do rule number 5. So let's go ahead and get started on your notes. Okay, so this is rule number 5. And so the rule is when you divide, subtract the exponents. It's kind of the opposite of when you multiply, add the exponents. So here when you divide, you subtract the exponents. Okay, so let's see an example of that. For example, if you have x to the 6th power over x to the 2nd power, notice how the bases are the same. We are dividing. So what you're going to do with the exponents is you're going to subtract them. So what's happening is you get your base and you're going to subtract the exponents. Now, because the 6 is in the numerator, that's what goes first. So it's 6 minus 2, okay, which ends up being x to the 4th power. And here's our final answer. Now, the reason why we subtract, I'm going to show this to you in expanded form. X to the 6th power is x times x times x times x times x times x, right? Over x to the 2nd power would be expanded form as, written in expanded form as x times x. So anytime you have a number over itself, they cancel out because they end up being divided with each other and they give you a 1. Well, the same thing here. These two cancel each other out, and how many x's are left over? X to the 4th power. There's 4 of them left over. So that's the reason why we just subtract them. You don't actually have to write all the questions in expanded form and then, cancel them out. Instead, you could just do the shortcut where you subtract, okay? All right, let's go ahead and look at some examples. Okay, so the first example here, we'll call this number 1. We have y to the 4th over y to the 6th. Okay, so because we're dividing, we're going to subtract. Now, be careful here because the exponent in the numerator is the one that goes first. So it's going to be 4 minus 6. When you subtract, you end up with y to the negative 2nd power. Now, if your multiple choice answers have this with the negative exponent, that's fine. Go ahead and choose your answer. But if the directions tell you to only have positive exponents, then you have to move this to the bottom because of the negative rule. So you end up with 1 over y to the positive 2nd power, and this should be your answer. Okay. Number 2. So we have x to the 9th power over y to the 4th. Okay, so what do you think? Well, they have different bases, so you cannot combine these. So your answer is already in simplest form. So this is it. You're going to keep the same answer. So here what happened was you cannot combine because bases are not the same. Okay. Okay, so the next part here, whenever you have examples with coefficients, what you're going to do is divide the coefficients Now, if you're wondering what's a coefficient, that's always the number in front of the variable. For example, if you have 2x to the second power, the number in front of the variable, this is called the coefficient, okay? And then you always have to make sure that you simplify the variables with the quotient rule. Okay. All right, so let's look at number 3. So for example, if you have 4n to the 8th power over 2n to the 7th power, well, notice how there's a coefficient. There's a 4 and there's a 2, and it says when you have coefficients, divide the coefficients. So 4 divided by 2, you're going to simplify that like normal, and you end up with 2 in the numerator. And then here we can go ahead and do the quotient rule. You have n, and then the exponent in the numerator is 8, and the rule is to subtract. And so we're going to subtract 7. Okay, so now we can simplify this. So you keep 2n, 8 minus 7 is 1, but you don't have to write the 1, so it's just 2n. Okay. Okay, let's move on to another example. I'm going to move on to the next page. Okay, so this one is going to be number 4. Okay, let's say I have 8 to the negative 4th power over 8 to the 2nd power. So here I notice that the bases are the same, so we can subtract the exponents. So we're going to do 8. Now remember, this goes first, so it's negative 4 minus 2. So we end up with negative 4 minus 2 is negative 6. And if this is one of the answers in the multiple choice, you can select it. If it says to keep your exponents as positive exponents, then we're going to go ahead and move it to the bottom. And this is our correct answer. Okay, number 5. We have 7x to the 12th power, y to the 9th, over 14x to the 4th power, and y to the 3rd power. Okay, so the rule is you can divide your coefficients. So I can simplify 7 over 14 and it becomes 1/2. Now I'm going to simplify using the quotient rule. So x to the 12th power minus 4. And then I have y to the 9th power minus 3. So I'm going to go ahead and simplify that. So I have 1x to the 8th power and y to the 6th power over 2. But we don't need this one in the front, right? It's understood that there's a 1 in front of the variable if it's invisible. So you could just write it as x to the 8th, y to the 6th over 2. And this is your final answer. Okay? All right, that's it. So enjoy your day. Again, this is Miss Byrd. Have a good one.